There you go. We're live. Hey everyone. Very happy to introduce K Anis Ahmed. Do you want to give us an introduction to yourself and your books?
Sure. I go by my middle name, Anis, and I'm a writer from Bangladesh, although I'm currently located in the US. I have written three previous works of fiction. One was a collection of short stories called Goodnight, Mr. Kissinger, and another was a novel called The World in My Hands. And the third book was a novella called 40 Steps. And all those were set in Bangladesh or in imaginary versions of Bangladesh or imaginary towns in that region. So my new book, Carnivore, which is just out from HarperCollins this year in June, is a big departure from that universe. It's set in New York. It's about the high-end foodie world, and when I set out to write it, I didn't know it, but it turned out to be a crime thriller of sorts. So that's who I am, primarily a fiction writer, but I've also written op-eds for New York Times, Wall Street Journal, some other places.
So, did you, when you were setting out to write this book, was it a crime thriller always in your head, or did it just work out that it was a thriller?
No, I didn't start out thinking it was going to be a crime thriller. I wasn't even sure of the crime part of it. I was much more intrigued initially by the idea of a young immigrant person in a city like New York. And I wanted to tell a story that wouldn't be the quote typical immigrant story, not a story of either assimilation or alienation in that kind of traditional sense. But the idea of just a guy trying to make it in the world and more focus on ambition and how ambition can even bend people seriously out of shape. And I had lived in New York. I loved the idea. I loved that city. I loved the idea of writing about it and from a different point of view from what many others have written. So those were the elements that got me started. But then, of course, my character needed challenges, and I wanted to see him in a situation of stress. And as the stress built up, he decided to go in directions of solution that turned this into a crime novel and with I think, thriller dimension.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite shocking, I would say, isn't it? Is that something you set out to do? Did you want to shock people with what you wrote, or?
I didn't set out to shock people, but I did want it to be provocative. I wanted to really kind of interrogate both this moment of hyperconsumption we're living in across the world, but certainly, especially the more prosperous Western world, what it means for culture, what it means for us as human beings, and this prioritizing of things, always things and appetites over other kinds of appreciations of connection. I wanted to explore that. And at the same time, I wanted to explore the limits of human ambition and how far we not only go ourselves, but how far we can bring along others with us as we're pushing those limits. I wanted to explore these extremes of both the larger culture and of an individual's own ambitions. And I think as I pushed those limits, it pushed into the zone of crime and thriller and ultimately went to a place that, yeah, I guess many would find very shocking.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like you were definitely going to a place to sort of, I don't know, shock is the right word, but to provoke people's reactions.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, we have so much what I would call normalized violence in our societies, both at the level of individual crimes, even at a domestic level, and also on a large scale, at a geopolitical scale, absolutely atrocious things that happen and unfold before our eyes. And no one says it's okay, but at the same time, we have become almost not immune to it, but a degree of psychological inoculation. And maybe that's the only way we can get on with our daily lives in the face of it when we are powerless to change it. So, with that in mind, I wanted to see okay, we still have certain taboos. You think this is so bad, but how bad is it really compared to all the other bads we've kind of accepted as, quote, normal or just things that happen?
Do you see yourself writing more books with the characters that you've introduced in this one?
Uh, it's not something I had in mind when I started this, but having finished it and the way it ends, especially the two main characters, it's now on my mind that there could be a further story to tell.
And you said you've written stuff before, like fiction before, that's mostly been set in Bangladesh or like a fictional version of it. Um, there is little sort of links to Bangladesh in this one. Would you go take him back there? Would you want to write another like book sort of set in that world or that country?
I think if I do a sequel, it will be set in another big global city. I see him as a character belonging to that cosmos and maybe a more of a quote new frontier, like a place like Dubai. Maybe I would set him there. Um, you know, and the Bangladesh part would now there be as a lighter backdrop because quite a bit of the backstory has been told in this first book. So if I did a second book, I think actually Bangladesh would be less present and the focus would be on the present.
See, I would like to read your writing that was set in Bangladesh as well, because I feel like that's a country not as explored in fiction that might
That's
be quite
true.
interesting.
I mean, especially compared to, say, India, which is next door, it's a much bigger country, and English is much more of a uh, language of the country in India. So all the way from Salman Rushdie, but also even before him, R.K. Narayan, Anita Desai, and many others. They have a very strong culture of writing in English. And of course, anything that's written in English is, of course, much more easily and readily accessible in the English speaking West, America, especially UK, but also Canada. By comparison, in Bangladesh, the main language really is the native Bengali. And I'm among a relatively small number of writers and of more recent decades, especially just the last 2 decades, who are writing in English and also getting published internationally. So yeah, there's a much less exposure or ready access for Western readers to that world.
Which I think would make for an interesting novel set there.
It would, yeah. I mean, I've done one novel set there called The World in My Hands, which explored the 2007-8 state of emergency in that country. Um, and it also explored friendships and how they can get overturned as the political order and social order changes. It was that kind of a story. Um, I'm actually working on something new now that's set in London, and it's going to be much more like carnivore and its style and focus. Um, in fact, this time I'm deliberately setting out to explore psychopathic characters. In
Laura,
carnivore, that kind of it fell into that, but
Laura, who's watching, has asked a question that I've got to
sure.
read to you, but having read the
Okay.
book, I'm more intrigued about your answer. She said if you
Okay.
could meet one of your characters for a meal, who would it be? What would you eat? And what would you talk about? Because there are certain
If
meals in your book that no one wants to go for.
if I could eat one of the characters,
If you can meet one of the characters for a meal, who would it be? What would you
oh
eat?
me,
And what would you
okay.
talk about?
Well, okay, that's much easier to answer than having to answer whom I would eat. Uh, I think I would want to meet Victor, the Kazakh billionaire. Um, he intrigues me. Someone with such grand success financially, who still has such a chip on his shoulder and belongs both between worlds but not fully. I think he'd be an interesting character. And for dinner, maybe I would want to go somewhere really exotic. For example, since he's a billionaire and I expect he'd host it and he can arrange anything, maybe dinner at the northernmost place anyone can go to, wherever that might be, somewhere close to the Arctic Cap for in the summer for a Scandinavian dinner.
Interesting. What would you talk about?
What would Victor and I talk about? I think with someone like him, I would talk about their miners club and what kind of adventures they've had, what has been most interesting for him, but also out of that club, what it's like to be him, to be from a country like Kazakhstan. But also, he is a billionaire who made his money in rare earth minerals, so I'd be interested to learn more about that because that has become such a key ingredient of our modern life. And I would expect him to know a lot about maybe even emerging technologies. So maybe we'd talk about how that's going to change or impact the world. So I think it would be pretty much the kind of conversation you would have with an intelligent friend who's very worldly and knows about things.
How did you? So, when you were coming up with the concept of carnivore, did you sort of come up with the characters first or the plot first?
Characters. It started with the idea of a character like Cash, and the plot came from that. It started with I knew I wanted to set it in New York. I wanted a character like Cash, and I wanted to write about the food world, the sort of the what I feel is the overhyped, high-end foodie world that has quite captivated public imagination for the last decade or two. Those were the starting elements, and then the plot came together slowly.
Did you, apart from Cash's like first landlady in the book, I feel like most people in it aren't that likable. Was that like a deliberate decision?
Yes, I felt the kind of world it is and the kind of things that happen. It wouldn't be easy to have that happen with very likable, nice people.
Yeah. Well done then, because that definitely you definitely achieved that.
Yeah,
Although his landlady, phenomenal, loved her. Like his first landlady when he came
yeah,
over, she's
yeah,
brilliant.
yeah. She was. I think Helen's interesting too. Um, she has a lot of strength, but then there's something broken inside her as well that really responds to Cash's dark side and dark schemes.
Did you? How much of it? Because I don't know. the world of billionaires at all. So is the Miners Club a real thing, or is that something you invented?
I invented it. As far as I know, there is no such thing. But it seemed perfectly plausible. It seemed like it could happen.
It does seem like it could happen. You can imagine a
Yeah,
group of billionaires
yeah.
doing something like that. I thought you were going to tell me it was a real thing.
No, no, it's not. I mean, I
No?
don't know the world of billionaires either, but in my searches, nothing like that came up. I just invented that.
Did you have to go on a bit of a foodie mission to write it? Did you have to go and try lots of restaurants to think about what you
I did a little bit. I mean, I am very interested in food. I love food. I love cooking. My wife's a trained chef, and she actually helped me a lot with the menus and the recipes. Um, so all that I love, and even the idea, if I were free to do so and had the resources to do so, maybe I would love to have a cafe or restaurant of some kind. So all of that interests me. What doesn't interest me, or I find a bit repulsive, not repulsive, that's too strong, but a bit. Um, I have been to a lot of Michelin star restaurants in New York, London, Dubai, and wherever. I've had the occasion to do so in Paris or other places. And frankly, as exquisite as some of the meals are, for the most part, I felt many of them were very overpriced, overstaged, and most of all, they felt repetitive. The kind of food that interests me really is the local, the home cooked, and the kind of excellence someone can achieve in a quote normal kitchen and not in what is virtually a chemistry lab. Um, so I had a lot of interest in that topic, and this was a good way to get into that.
So, I mean, if you're going to write another one with Cash, will it continue on in the like foodie world, or do you think he's going to branch out into some other sort of branch of business?
I think it'll be something else. For me, the food world exploration is done. I would probably situate him in a place like Dubai or even Riyadh, somewhere in the quote new world, where there is a lot of money, a lot of ambition, gumption, a lot of delusion, a lot of deceit or self-deceit, and where both amazing things are happening. Countries there, especially UAE and Saudi Arabia, they really are trying to be at the forefront of reinventing themselves, leveraging the latest of technologies. So maybe I would put him in touch with a very forward-looking sheikh with some idea of some kind of future tech play lab, maybe synthetic biology or the interface of human and computer consciousness, doing something in that zone, but obviously things will not go right. And the personal power dynamics of things, moral quandaries of even technologies of that kind, and then of a more basic elemental kind, that would all come into play.
Could you be able to, would you be able to weave Cash into that though, or would you have to make a new character? Because I don't feel like Cash has like would he know what that was to be able to get involved in that world?
I think he could. I think the main thing about Cash is that even though his start is with food, he's not ultimately only about food. He is a self inventing person and with a great capacity to learn. So I would maybe see it as his patron Victor putting him in a position like that you take the lead on this, and partly puts him there because maybe they're doing something with gene editing or something like that that's out there in a questionable zone of morality, and Victor sees a sort of perfect immoral candidate or compromise candidate in Cash for running an enterprise like that.
Hmm, interesting. You'd have to do a lot of research though for something like that to get the
I would, but
science of
it so
what's
happens I'm very interested in all that as well. In fact, I've been reading this book called The Coming Wave by Soleimani, who was one of the founders of DeepMind. And I found this to be the best sort of accessible account for people like you and me, who are, I presume, not uh, tech entrepreneurs, um, to give us a sense of the really wild um, future of technology that we're on the brink of, and the degree of autonomy that some of this tech is going to have, and the kind of dangers it poses. And the biggest danger is we don't even know fully what those dangers are. Um, so I'm very interested in that world, and I think I would enjoy that research.
Yeah, I think a lot of scientists, speaking from when I studied science, do have like ethical checks and boards and things in place to make sure that there is like sound reasons for what they're doing.
Yeah, traditionally, historically, that has been the case. And even with that, of course, something like nuclear fission led to nuclear bombs. And the world has had probably the greatest success in terms of containing a technology when it comes to nuclear bombs. Not perfect success, but a high degree of success. And I think the concern now is, and that's what Soleimani is on about, is like, look, I am one of the people who started this. I helped get make this real. And I am telling you now, we are creating things that could be out of our control that we don't fully understand the repercussions of. So I think that'll be interesting to both explore for myself as my own learning, but also it's something we all need to try to understand more.
So that would be your follow up. Would you see the book as would Boris come back in a second book?
No,
No. There's not unfinished business between him and Cash.
no, he still wouldn't come back.
Oh, okay.
Um, I would, you did.
I thought he might have done. I thought there might be some unfinished business between them.
Well, my not to give any spoilers, but I feel like there might be good reasons why he wouldn't come back. And that's partly because, if Victor were to place Cash in a different country, that kind of country, he would be quite out of Boris's reach.
True. Yeah, I guess that's an interesting place. Is there a part of the world that you've not written about that you would like to?
In my travels, I'm moderately well traveled. I've been in the Americas and Europe and Asia mostly. I've never had the chance to go to Australia, and I've been to South America, but briefly. But my biggest gap in my travels, I feel, is Africa. I think that's, it's a vast continent and very diverse. Um, it's a continent I would love to visit one day. And yeah, if I felt comfortable enough, because I feel that it's also a continent that's probably teeming with stories.
And another one, yeah, one that'd be interesting to explore. So, would you be tempted to travel there to set a book there?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would be tempted to travel there just for the sake of getting to know this big, huge continent and the amazing transformations that are happening there. And in the process, if some place, some character, some incident, something really strikes me, captures the imagination, I could see myself setting a story there as well.
Malcolm, who's watching, asks where in Africa attracts you the most.
Which part of Africa?
Hmm.
I think probably Western Africa, maybe a country like Ghana, or a country that has a strong not only ancient history, but also um, sort of a dense modern culture and elements of both the ancient and folk, but also real modernity, and that could be an interesting setting. I wouldn't want to write a quote again, typical story of Africa set in the jungles, or I think I would want to be careful about not being either derivative or exploitative, that, oh, it's just this material I can use. I would want to find a story that the kind of which hasn't been quite told about Africa and not by an outsider. So I don't know what that would look like, but it would be interesting.
True. What's the reception? What have you done to, like, apart from this chat? What kind of author things and that have you done for Carnival?
I haven't done too much, to be honest, except some other sort of written print interviews, um, you know, like 5 question type things, but also like a longer article about evolution as a writer and that sort of thing. So I've had a few placements like that. I'm doing this. I did a talk radio in Spain, and hopefully, more interesting chats will come up, or I'll get a chance to write more about some of the themes I've explored, and I'll keep doing that. I'm
What's
not planning on traveling or doing events at the moment, but maybe in the new year, in spring.
what has been the reception to the book so far?
Um, Quite positive, it seems. I've had a couple of very good reviews in the UK, in the Evening Standard, and other places. And I've also had very good, strong reviews in India. There was a very strong review in the Hindustan Times, which is, I think, one of the largest dailies all across India. So most people who've read it um, seem to have enjoyed it, and that was my biggest goal. I wanted to tell a story that whatever other intellectual, psychological, emotional uh, elements it may have, it may try to explore, it should be a story that hopefully grips the reader, keeps them wanting to turn the page, and surprises them, delights them, and also, yeah, provokes them and maybe shocks them. But all through, it stays enjoyable as a read. It doesn't feel like homework.
Has it been translated into many other languages?
Not yet, but hopefully it'll find some audience in other languages too down the line.
I'm intrigued if you've had any TV or film interest in it.
Not yet. Nothing concrete. Nothing that's gone anywhere yet. But there have been inquiries. Yes. So
One of our favourite questions to ask in the group is
yes.
if that happened, if you got a TV or film kind of deal for your book, what character would you like to play?
Probably Victor.
You want to be the
Probably Victor.
billionaire?
Yeah. I don't think I could pull off Boris. I just don't have the physicality for that character. And I think, I also don't have the head of hair I'd need to play Cash. So Victor is it.
Okay. I mean, he's an interesting character.
Sorry.
He's an interesting character. I can
He
see why
is
you would
interesting, I
play him.
think. And again, not to give anything away, but what he reveals about his motives in terms of how he dealt with Cash, that's what I think makes him, in a subtle way, kind of sinister as well.
Malcolm's curious about your cover. He said, did you have much influence in it?
No, actually, the cover artists at HarperCollins came up with it.
You're
They,
just
of
going to
course,
show us
shared
all
it
the
with
cover
me.
again.
Sorry.
Show us all the cover again while you're telling us about
Ah,
that.
sure. So that's the cover. You know, like many writers, I don't know if other writers do it. I did try imagining what a cover for this book would look like when I had finished it. And to be honest, I couldn't really come up with anything because I didn't want anything that was too obvious, too much of a giveaway. And then they came up with this. And when I saw it, it hit me as, yeah, that's just right. It's bold, it's provocative, and it says enough but doesn't give everything away.
It's quite unusual to other thriller covers as well, I guess, which will make you stand out in that sort of bookshop sort of area.
I hope so. I hope so. You know, I have friends who've sent me photos of my book in bookshop windows in the UK, and I'm of course biased or would love to think so, but I really feel like it stands out in the shelf. Like your eyes would fall on this. So it's a very striking cover, probably because of the color as well, the yellow and the red on it.
Did you, is the title your working title? What did you call it when you were writing it?
Ah, no. When I was writing it, for the several years it took me to write it, I called it The New Barbarians. And my editor, Charlie Campbell, a good friend and an excellent agent, not editor, sorry, agent Charlie, he said, you know, I feel like the word barbarians has been used many times in many titles. And I was like, yeah, you're right about that. That's why I put in the new. He was like, yeah, but it still isn't new enough. And then he suggested carnivore. And the minute I heard it, I thought, bingo, that's it.
Leslie said the cover unnerved her a bit. It's like the diagram in a butcher's shop, but a person.
It is unnerving. I like that about it. And to be honest, I was a little worried that it might be off putting for some readers. But all things considered, I decided to trust the judgment of my editor and the artists, and they felt that this would also attract the attention of the right kind of readers for this book.
Yeah, it definitely sort of captures the imagination, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Um, which is an interesting thing to do. Um,
yeah,
you talk about some quite wild sort of foods in the book,
yeah,
like the Greenland shark, and there's like a squid that's still alive when you eat it or something. Is it a squid or
yeah,
an octopus?
yeah.
Have you tried those things?
I haven't tried everything that I write about. Most of it comes from research, but I've had some pretty wild things in my life, or things that many people would consider wild.
Malcolm says as an author, he tries to read his reviews. Do you?
Um, yeah, I read the reviews, but I don't get either overexcited or overly bothered by them. Mainly, I read them to see if they will hopefully inspire uh, my ideal readers to want to check out this book.
Who are? I'm intrigued by what you're saying about your ideal read. Who are your ideal readers?
I think my ideal reader would be someone who loves a good story that is driven by character and by plot that is not uh, too familiar or might have unpredictable elements. But most of all, an ideal reader would be someone who is curious about new worlds, you know, whether it's this high end foodie world or the dark side of um, foodie trade or you know, a different side of New York, or even the bits about Bangladesh, who would feel curious enough or intrigued enough to be encountering things they didn't expect to find in the book and still feel engaged by it.
I quite like the bits set in Bangladesh. I'm going to be honest. In the book, I liked his like flashbacks to growing up,
Oh, that's good to hear.
things that he was
I kind
about.
of put it in there because I felt like I needed to give a certain background for Cash, a deep background, um, to help understand why he might go to the extremes he goes to. Like, what are the deep scars in him, in his makeup, that would make him go that way. But I'm glad that the Bangladesh parts spoke to you, and hopefully they will to other readers as well, and won't feel like, oh, okay, background. I want to just skip these pages, get to where the actual story is or present story is.
Do you One of the questions I like to ask people, because you're new, you see, we can ask you all the old questions we ask um our favorite kind of book group questions. So one
Hmm.
of the questions I like to ask people a lot is, would you make a graphic novel version of your book?
Yeah, if someone was willing to do it, I mean, I myself couldn't do it, but yeah, if there was a graphic novel artist who wanted to take this up and make a graphic novel of it, I'd be all for it. I am a big fan of adaptations into other media.
Malcolm says, tell us about the most bizarre meal presented to you. As it's Yorkshire Day, he doubts that's Yorkshire pudding. It is Yorkshire Day today.
I've had Yorkshire pudding, which I didn't think was that wild. I found it delicious. Certain other British food items that many outsiders find very, I don't know what, daunting, like haggis or black pudding. I love those. I love that kind of stuff that's rich. But of the things I have been served and I've had, in terms of the source type, I think the most sort of out there thing I've had is python. I've also had snakes in China, but that's common over there. But python was exceptional.
Okay, interesting.
And also lion,
You ate
both ethically sourced.
there. Yeah, there is a lot of discussion about like ethical sourcing in the book, isn't there? Um,
Yeah.
there are, I think, as well as like exploring that sort of idea of overconsumption and things that you have like throughout the book, and sort of that obsession with, like a really rich world. You
Mhm.
do have some sort of conversations throughout that are quite challenging between the characters. Don't
Mhm.
you? Like, some of them have some quite challenging opinions.
Mhm.
Um, Sorry, I'm just reading the other comments that have come in. Leslie says, high-end foodie world makes her wonder sometimes, why did black pudding become so trendy, or pig's trotters? It was nutritious, cheap food, and now it's expensive.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I think has gone a little wrong with the kind of foodism we're seeing now. Um, Initially, it was basically taking high-end French cuisine and then finding more modern iterations of it, I think. And then there was the whole uh, molecular gastronomy that was initiated. And now, as there's been a new movement towards more local sourcing, more authentic recipes, I think what the high-end foodie world is doing is picking up food that belongs in that category and trying to appropriate it for their kind of high-end treatment. And then that's where I think something like black pudding goes and becomes, I don't know, $50 a plate or something. I wouldn't pay that for a black pudding, but I would pay a fair price and thoroughly enjoy it. And I would probably like it better the way it's traditionally prepared and not what some Michelin star restaurant might do with it.
Yeah, well, I grew up with a Northern English dad, so black pudding and things like that are very, very.
Staple. It's,
Yeah, it's like it's
it wasn't exotic. It was just food.
just a thing that you eat. Yeah,
Right.
I can understand why people would think it was a bit like out there.
Hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, that's an interesting thing. What if you because obviously you've written sort of outside of crime as well. What um what kind of things do you like to read? What have you read recently and really enjoyed?
Oh, I read very widely, both fiction and nonfiction. And within fiction, while I maybe read a little more of what many would call literary fiction, I still gravitate towards what's a good story. So, and I don't usually judge by whether it's in this genre or that genre, like whether it's a good story is what I'm looking for. What I don't read much of at all is horror or fantasy. So recently, things I've read that I really enjoyed. What I've read recently is not necessarily written recently. Sometimes I'm reading stuff that was written a long time ago. But I was reading, what have I read recently? Um, I'm reading The House of Doors by, what's his name? Sorry, I'm blanking on the author's name right now. It's called The House of Doors, and it's about Somerset Maugham, um, set in Penang in the 1920s. So the idea of this great worldwide known author in a very private situation and another era that really intrigued me. I'm also reading a crime novel called, I think, The Hounslow something. It's set in London, which is very, very interesting.
Do you so one of the questions we ask in the group is who are your shut up and take my money authors? Like who are the people who it doesn't matter what they've written, you would just buy their books.
Yeah, if
So
the individual, the
yeah, so like
book, its premise, its characters seem interesting to me, then I don't particularly care who the author is or
but do you have like particular authors? So this is what I'm trying to that you sometimes like I have particular authors across all sorts of genres
yeah.
who it doesn't matter what they've written. I'm not going to go in the bookshop and read their book. If I see their name on a new book, I'm just going to buy it because I know that I like
Oh,
their
yeah,
writing.
sure.
Yeah, like them, they're hands down like the author I'm always going to buy the book of. Who are those kind of authors for you?
Ah, okay. Um, Unfortunately, one of those authors is no more, so there's not going to be new books. But it was Dennis Johnson. Whenever I saw his books come out, I would go get it. Another one for me has been Ewan McEwan, and luckily he's still putting out new titles, so there's always something to look forward to. Also, Kazuo Ishiguro and Salman Rushdie.
That's an interesting range. Uh, I like Murakami.
Oh, really?
Mine for like the Insta buy books. I would
His
buy anything he wrote.
yes, his with him, you never know where this journey is going to take you with each book.
But that's a thing I quite like about him. Terry
Yeah,
Pratchett used to be one of my other favourites, but I
right.
do like fantasy and horror. So, but sadly, he's not putting out books anymore. Uh,
Mm.
Leslie said she's heard that kangaroo. I don't. Is this a pun, Leslie? She said that kangaroo delivers quite a kick. A restaurant in Whitby used to dish it up, and it was very tough, apparently.
Yes, I've had kangaroo, and I
Is it
agree with
very
that.
tough?
It does deliver quite a kick. I've also had crocodile and alligator, bison and elk. But see, to us, kangaroo is exotic, but in parts of Australia, for example, I think it's not as exotic. But yeah, it's definitely uncommon for most people, and it does deliver quite a kick.
I've eaten moose. That was very nice.
Sorry,
I've eaten moose,
moose, yes.
the animal in Sweden. That was very nice. That was definitely an
Yeah.
experience. Um, Malcolm said he's going, so but he appreciates uh, the chat. And oh, one of our other favourite questions is: have you ever acted out a scene that you've written?
Have I ever? No, actually, I haven't had the chance to do so. No,
No,
no.
we've got some wild answers to that in the past. Leslie says "Never Let Me Go" is one of her favourite books.
It is. It's an amazing book.
It
Yeah.
is. No, I agree. It's a stunning book. Um, I'm trying to think what else I've read by him. I've got Clara and the Sun on my reading pile, but I've not read it
Mm,
yet. But yeah,
yeah.
we're quite
You
fond
know,
of it.
Ishiguro has a play that's very not well known. And again, I'm forgetting the name, but I'm certain it was him. And that's about cannibalism. Ishiguro has written a play like that, but it's not very well known.
I don't feel like there's a lot of literature about cannibalism. Is that one of the reasons why you wanted to venture into that kind of?
Yes, yes, because I wanted to explore basically extremes.
So, is
And
there an extreme? Because it is hard when you explore an extreme end of something to sort of find a line where it's like everyone's going to be able to explore and read it, isn't it? So, is there
right,
like an extreme of something that you wouldn't write about?
that I wouldn't write about. Oh, a lot of things. I can explore a lot of extremes, but there are things I couldn't do. For example, I never could have written a book like We Need to Talk About Kevin. Um, the Lionel Shriver novel. Um, it made for a riveting read. I was fascinated by it in a horrified way, and it's just so intelligently written, given what it's about. But I don't think that's something I could have written. I think anything that has cruelty towards children, I would find very, very difficult to write. Um, but then, sadly, we live in a world where that does happen, and there are people who write about it and need to write about it because it too is a topic that needs to be understood. But I would find it very hard to approach that.
I'm curious when you were writing this, though, were there moments where you talked with your editor and sort of dialed back on bits, or did you like think, were you sort of aware as you were writing it that it was quite bits of it were a bit like challenging to people?
Yes, I was aware that that was the case, and I got really good feedback from both my agent and my editor, Morgan Springett at HarperCollins. They both gave me really excellent feedback on what to focus on, and this is not a book that's primarily about shocking people. So the things that people do or things that may happen or gruesome description, that's not the focus. The much more the focus is the people involved in it, the kind of human failing or twistedness that slowly drags people into situations like this. And they help me stay focused on that. And then also, especially with keeping the story clipped, keeping a clipped pace. As a writer, it's easy to sort of lose sight of it, and certainly sometimes overwrite or digress in unnecessary ways. And that's where I think editors can be very, very helpful.
Yeah, it's quite a short, pacey book, isn't it? Um,
I hope so. I
and,
worked hard at trying to make it pacey.
and I guess I do understand what you're saying, because you do the camera is never on the bits that are difficult in a way, is it? It's all about the reasons why people would go to a place that they do. Um,
Yeah, it's much more about, say, the psychology of extreme ambition, of moral compromise, of complicity, of all kinds of, psychological twists that get people into committing crime or in some space adjacent to crime, even if it's not fully legally a crime. I was interested in that kind of extremes of human nature. What's the breaking point? Why? What takes someone there? And not on gruesomeness or that kind of shock or graphic details that felt unnecessary. I didn't want it to be anything that was a little bit violent or a little bit that sort of thing. I tried to make the description necessary and not gratuitous.
there's the what are your another one of our favorite questions? What are your most memorable moments as an author so far?
Of the novel,
What yeah, just your most memorable moments as an author in general.
memorable moments as an author. Wow, I've actually never thought about that. But I think one would be after one of my books, I had gone to the Lahore Literary Festival, and there is a very fraught history between Pakistan and Bangladesh. Bangladesh became independent through a liberation war in 1971, during which the Pakistan army had committed genocide in Bangladesh. And in a packed hall, I was asked about that, how I felt about that as a Bangladeshi. And sitting in Pakistan in a hall full of Pakistanis who I didn't know, what their thoughts or feelings were, having to answer such a fraught question, um, it was very delicate. And I didn't want to shy away from giving my true answer, but I also didn't want to give it in a way that might have felt unfair to anyone in the audience. And I gave my answer, and this gentleman got up and he started saying, "Sir, I want to apologize on behalf of my country for what we did to yours in 1971." And he went on. And that was absolutely electric to encounter a person like that and a response like that.
So good answer. What would you want people to take away? What's your most sort of important thing you want them to take away from Carnival?
From Carnivore,
Hmm.
hmm, the sense of thrill, the sense that the world is big and there is a lot of opportunity and potential there to try to fulfill our unique passions and dreams. And hopefully, for my readers, that won't turn, take a grotesque turn or make them cross all kinds of moral and legal lines. But still, this idea of the world is full of adventurous possibilities.
And then, so sort of finishes off, remind people what they're going to go away and buy.
Sorry.
So to finish off our chat, remind
Yeah.
people what they're going to go away and buy. You can show us a book again if you want.
Ah, yes. Yes, I hope they will go look for it either on Amazon or wherever, preferably a bookstore, maybe near them. Um, Carnivore, and that's the book.
Wonderful. And then all that's left to say is thanks for joining us.
It was a real pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.